Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Chandra Ballabha Girivardhari Gopi Chandra Ballabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading today from Srimad-bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 15, verses from 11 till 15. So we'll chant. So we'll chant verse 11, and then we'll read the others. Prasadita Satyavatya Vaivang Boriti Bhargava Attatari Vavait Potro Jamadagni Stato Bhavat Sarita Sachavatya Vaivang Boriti Bhargavaha Attatari Bhavet Potro Jamadagni Stato Bhavat Sarita Sachavatya Vaivang Boriti Bhargavaha Attatari Bhavet Potro Jamadagni Stato Bhavat Sarita Sachavatya Vaivang Boriti Bhargavaha Attatari Bhavet Potro Jamadagni Stato Bhavat Sarita Sachavatya Vaivang Boriti Bhargavaha Attatari Bhavet Potro Jamadagni Stato Bhavat Sarita Sachavatya Vaivang Boriti Bhargavaha Attatari Bhavet Potro Jamadagni Stato Bhavat Sarita Sachavatya Vaivang Boriti Bhargavaha Attatari Bhavet Potro Jamadagni Stato Bhavat. Word for word synonyms. Prasaditaha, pacified. Satyavatya, Satyavati. Ma, not. Evam, thus. Uhu, let it be. Iti, thus. Bhargavaha, the great sage. Ata, if your son should not become like that. Tarhi, then, Bhavet, should become like that. Putraha, the grandson. Jamadagni, Tata, thereafter, Bhavat, was born. Translation. Satyavati, however, pacified Vrichika Muni with peaceful words and requested that her son not be like a fierce Kshatriya. Vrichika Muni replied, and your grandson will be of a Kshatriya spirit. Thus Jamadagni was born as the son, Jamadagni was born as the son of Satyavati. Purport. The great sage Rachika was very angry, but somehow or other Satyavati pacified him, and at her request he changed his mind. It is indicated here that the son of Jamadagni would be born as Parasurama. Okay. Short purport. Let's go into the next verses. Satyavati later became the sacred river Kaushiki to purify the entire world, and her son Jamadagni married Renuka, the daughter of Renu. By the semen of Jagadagni, many sons headed by Vasuman were born from the womb of Renuka. The youngest of them was named Ram or Parasurama. Okay. One more. Two more. Learned scholars accept this Parasurama as the celebrated incarnation of Vasudeva, who annihilated the dynasty of Kartavirya. Parasurama killed all the Kshatriyas on earth 21 times. Verse 15. When the royal dynasty, being excessively proud because of the material modes of passion and ignorance, became irreligious and ceased to care for the laws enacted by the Brahmanas, Parasurama killed them. Although their offense was not very severe, he killed them to lessen the burden of the world. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Kshatriyas, or the ruling class, must govern the world in accordance with the rules and regulations enacted by the great Brahmanas and saintly persons. As soon as the ruling class becomes irresponsible in regard to the religious principles, it becomes a burden on the earth. As stated here, Rajastama Vritangvaram Abrahmanyam. When the ruling class is influenced by the lower modes of nature, namely ignorance and passion, it becomes a burden to the world and must be annihilated by superior power. We actually see from modern history that monarchies have been abolished by various revolutions, but unfortunately the monarchies have been abolished to establish the supremacy of, of the supremacy of third class and fourth class men. All the monarchies, overpowered by the modes of passion and ignorance, have been abolished in the world. The inhabitants of the world are still unhappy, for although the qualities of the former monarchs were degraded by taints of ignorance, these monarchs have been replaced by men of the mercantile and worker class, whose qualities are even more degraded. Where the government is actually guided by brahmanas or God-conscious men, then there can be real happiness for the people. Therefore, in previous times, when the ruling class was degraded to the modes of passion and ignorance, the brahmanas, headed by such a Kshatriya-spirited brahmana as Parasurama, killed them 21 consecutive times. In Kali Yuga, as stated in Srimad-bhagavatam 12th Canto, 2nd chapter, 13th verse, Dashu Prayeshu Rajeshu, the ruling class, Rajanya, will be no better than plunderers, Dashus, because the third class and fourth class men will monopolize the affairs of the government. Ignoring the religious principles and Brahminical rules and regulations, they will certainly try to plunder the riches of the citizens without consideration. As stated elsewhere in Srimad-bhagavatam 12:140, Sankrita kriya hina rajasa tamasa vitaha prajaste bhakshai ishanti Vecha Rajanya Rupinaha. Being unpurified, neglecting to discharge human duties properly, and being influenced by the modes of passion, rajas, and tamas, and ignorance, tamas, unclean people, mlechas, posing as members of the government, Rajanya Rupina, will swallow the citizens, Prajaste Bhakshiyai Shanti. And in such place, and in still another place, Srimad-bhagavatam, 12th Canto, 2nd chapter, verses 7 and 8. Evan Prajavir Dushtabir Atirne Chikti Bandanaha Mamavikata Shudanam Yo Ali Bhavata Ripaha Prajahi Nugda Rajanyaya Nirvinaya Nashu Dharmavi Achina Dara Dravina Yashanti Kiri Kananam. Oh my God, the relationship. Kali, Kali, Nama Rupa Krishna Avatar. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has now appeared as an incarnation by his holy name. Therefore, when the Prajas become Krishna conscious, they can expect a good government, a good society, a perfect life, and liberation from the bondage of material existence. I think it's the paragraph. Okay. Om Jnana Simarandasya Kinashina Shalakaya Chakshurun Militamina Tasma Shri Guru Namaha. No, this camera's not active. No. This camera's not working. So Parasurama appeared at a time that the Kshatriyas were becoming degraded. Previously, the Kshatriya in Satya Yuga, beginning of Treta Yuga, for sure, the Kshatriyas very carefully followed the guidance of the Brahmanas. Especially the Vaishnava Brahmanas. Because the kings, the Kshatriya kings, they would they had their advisors, the Brahminical board. And But these brahmanas that who advised them, they were not. It's not like modern times. You have the president has his called the cabinet, his personal advisors. They're all hired by the present time. Such advisors are all hired by the president to do and say whatever he wants you to say. Present time.
То есть в настоящее время сейчас
And if you didn't, if you don't give the advice and support in modern times that you're asked for, then you lose your job. But in the Vedic times, the brahmanas were they were asked to advise the king, but they were the king's advisors. He did not hire them. They were completely independent. So the brahmanas were free to give good advice give good advice to the king based on religious principles. They were not fearful of being losing their job, because they had no job. They were just simply voluntary advisors.
Они были свободны, поэтому они могли давать любые хорошие советы, и при этом они не боялись, что такой совет и поддержаться работой.
So here in these family histories that we're reading about here, so the incarnation of the Lord, Parasurama, appears. He's a Kshatriya tendency, but he's born in a Brahmana family. And he was very powerful, and he was not about to let the present Kshatriyas who were ruling the world disrespect the Brahmanas. And so Parasurama is famous for many times killing all the Kshatriyas because they were degraded in that way. In fact, it says 21 times he killed all the Kshatriyas. Which means obviously not killing the same Kshatriyas 21 times. So each Kshatriyas come, and others become Kshatriyas, and he can kill. So apparently he lived a very long time. And Srila Prabhupada is pointing out here that in modern times, modern times means the last few hundred years, there have been many, monarchs, many kings, queens who had absolute control over the people.
И еще Прабхупада рассказывает, что пару сотен лет назад цари, какие-то монархи, правители, они
And many times those kings and queens and dictators who were badly managing and controlling the people, there were revolutions and they were destroyed.
например, множество раз было такое, что какие-то цари, там, правители, королевы, диктаторы какие-то, они были свергнуты при помощи революции, если они правильно управляли.
So they were, so it was like that. They were so many kings and queens and so on were destroyed. But Srila Prabhupada says they were kicked out, but then the people who took over were bad or worse because they were not qualified to lead. Srila Prabhupada says they were replaced by third and fourth class men, which means Vaishya, Shudra, Kosa Shudra. Replaced by the kings, the monarchs, and they were replaced by people that were not Brahmanas, they're not Kshatriyas, they were more Vaishya or Shudra in tendency, in nature.
Шрила Прабхупада описывает, что такие правители, которые не умели править, их свергали не такие так шаги, а это, как правило, впихивается в четвертое условие.
So that becomes a very big problem, Srila Prabhupada said, because people are still not happy because they're still not being given good direction.
И Прабхупада описывает, что это было не очень хорошо, потому что не было правильного руководства.
Srila Prabhupada pointed out that the modern times we have in some countries like the United States, we have democracy. Democracy was the answer, the response to the dictatorship of previously. Dictatorship, monarch. Those came to America originally were people who came from the beginning from England. They had the kings and queens there, and they didn't want to be under that kind of control, so they came to here and started their own government. But the government is not actually run on the base, although we say in God we trust and right of religion and those things, but a lot of people are claiming to be a very religious person, but they're actually not following religious principles. In fact, in the name of a person can is actually in the Supreme Court ruling that you can be a religious person without actually believing in a supreme being. Normally, when we talk about being religious, we think worshiping God. God is the supreme personality or supreme being. But it's actually in the American laws that you can be religious, be considered to be a religious person, and not actually believe in a supreme personality like God.
Мы подразумеваем, что религиозный человек это тот, кто поклоняется Богу, входит в Бога. Вот. Тогда как люди, они считают, они называют себя религиозными, но в действительности они не верят в Верховного Господа и не совершают.
In fact, when I don't remember exactly what year it was. Maybe I was in junior high school. Anyway, from the time I started the school until somewhere in between, in the middle of that education, every day, the day started off, pledge allegiance to the American flag and a prayer to God, the Lord's Prayer, they call it. We did that. Yeah, that was done. It was done. Yeah.
Во время моей юности, скажем так, я не помню, сколько мне было лет, но это примерно было там середина школы. Вот. И у нас было правило, что каждый день в школе мы молились, просили молитву Богу.
But one year I went to school, and that little ritual, the Pledge of Allegiance and the praying, was usually the very first thing that was done in the morning once you got to school. But one year I went there, and it was like, you would say, conspicuous by its absence.
То есть обычно у нас это было с утра, это была процедура, когда мы перевели совместно молитву Богу. Но однажды в 11 годов я, как обычно, пришел в школу и этого процесса не было.
So happened that after 2 or 3 days, one of the teachers explained why the change. And she said that during I'm not sure exactly when it was, sometime since the previous year, there was a Supreme Court ruling that's against the law to mention God or pray in school. Shouldn't be mention God in school.
Она нам сказала, что даже год назад местное руководство оно издало закон, в котором они запретили все упоминание Бога и молитву в школе.
And that it all came out that was a result of a court case that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. One lady, atheist lady, she challenged the government. She was atheist, her son was atheist, being raised to be atheist. So she challenged the government that why should my son, who doesn't believe in God, why should he be forced every day to pray to God?
И это произошло таким образом, что одна женщина, мать этого ребенка, она была атеисткой, когда кто-то занимала какое-то положение высокое, потому что она бросила вызов тому сказала, почему мой ребенок не верит в Бога, а почему вы заставляете его в школе молиться?
I'm not familiar with all the arguments back and forth there, but the conclusion was that the government, the Supreme Court justices, made the decision that there's not allowed, you cannot ask or allow the students to pray in school.
Вот, и это все происходило на уровне высшего суда. И я, конечно, не знаю, какой там у них был диалог, но результат было, точнее, приговор Верховного суда был о том, что они запретили студентам молиться Богу.
In fact, they said we have, the Constitution says we have freedom of religion. We have freedom of religion. So someone would say, so my religion, why can't I pray in school? I can pray anywhere.
И такой парадокс, потому что в Конституции говорится, что каждый свободен в выборе своей религии. Вот. И то есть, если у меня такая религия, я верю в Бога, то почему я не могу молиться в школе?
But the conclusion there was that the people who were atheists, this statement I gave that from the Supreme Court came out of this. People who are atheists, they say, yes, my religion is to not believe in God. So why should me and my family be forced to pray to God? I'm being forced to follow somebody else's religion.
И один из таких аргументов атеистов был такой, что они говорили, ну да, моя религия это атеизм. Почему вы заставляете моего ребенка молиться?
Anyway, these kind of decisions, the point is that these kind of decisions have been made and can be made in a government that is not committed to, that this government is a religious government.
И в результате вот этого заключения, которое они издали, получается, что так называемое религиозное правительство на самом деле
So of course, Srila Prabhupada is encouraging us to teach people in general how life and government and everything should be based on religion, not sectarian religion, but at least you have to believe in God.
И поэтому Прабхупада нас подталкивает к тому, чтобы мы учили людей по поводу религии, не какой-то сектантской религии, а религии именно в том понимании, что есть.
Anyway, we can go on and on with this topic, but as members of the Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON, we need to try to convince people in general, not just that you believe in God, but that what are actual religious principles, what are the actual religious principles, and how do you actually live your life based on serving God.
И поэтому члены нашего общества, они должны убеждать людей не просто в том, чтобы они верили в Бога, а в том, что есть религиозные принципы, и объяснять, почему они это не
Anyway, there's a couple of points. Any questions, comments?
After their conclusion concerning stopping praying in the school, from that time this process was stopped and we didn't.
No, it's never put back that I'm aware of. Of course, if you have a religious school, they call them parochial schools, like a Catholic school, and that's a little different because everyone is there for that purpose. But in general, regular public schools maintained by the government and so on, and that's the standard.
Ну, я спросил, ну, что вот после такого заключения суда такие никогда не возвращались в практике молитвы. Вот, да, мы говорили, что ну, есть специальные школы религиозные, это правительство, они изначально слушают это религиозность, а вот именно та практика, которая была молитвенная, ну, так как мы видели тогда эти
And I remember although I didn't give up my belief in God, but I remember, the government is saying, making laws like that, and it's being applied in the schools. And I remember thinking, if the adults, the little kids at that time, so if the adults are doing this, and they think it's like they're saying that, hey, we don't believe in God, and we don't think you should believe in God either. And that was the actual move. They don't say don't believe in God, but they make it clear, hey, God is a part of your school, now God is kicked out of the school.
Когда вот это произошло, то старшие, ну, имеется в виду, что свой дети, скажем так, это старшие, там были старшие, то они не сказали детям, что перестань делать, а сказали, что я там вышел.
And right after this happened, that same year, the first time I started hearing about, like illicit sex amongst the students. This is a junior high school time. Illicit sex, drugs. I never even heard about drugs before that time. It was a drug. But we started hearing about these things at that time after they made it clear that God doesn't really belong in the school.
И когда они прекратили эту практику молитвы, то через какое-то время я узнал про такой секс, про наркотики, хотя вот до этого когда-то не слышал.
Anyway, anything else? Okay, so we'll end here for today, and we'll continue with the next verse tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.